Usually when a star player shows up to training camp but doesn't practice over a contractual dispute, it's huge news. It's a big problem. But Jordan Love is currently staging the least dramatic hold-in ever.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs are in our rear view now, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all day long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's usually a big deal when the star player, the star quarterback of all people, decides not to practice over a contractual dispute. But calling it a dispute at this point even seems like melodrama. The general manager has, for the entire offseason, insisted this deal is going to get done. The head coach does not seem fazed. He seems whatever about it. And Jordan Love, all smiles at practice, doing everything you would want him to do. But he's not practicing. So I guess not everything you'd want him to do, right? And this is because the contract is not signed. There are reasonable questions to ask about why that is, and we'll get to them. But what strikes me about all of this is the sort of thing that is chum in the water for media people, talking heads. It's the kind of thing that usually, because of the nature of these things, they are contentious. They are potentially even acrimonious. Do you remember what happened with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson? Like, teams had to say, we're not trading for Lamar Jackson. We're not interested in trading for Lamar Jackson, because that got so close to the precipice. This is not even close. And there are teams right now today who would defenestrate their starting quarterbacks for a chance to not only trade for Jordan Love, but pay him a top of market deal. There are teams out there who would do that. And so this is usually the perfect combustible situation for a GM to say the wrong thing, for a head coach to say the wrong thing, for a player to say the wrong thing to a media person. And all of a sudden, this is a nightmare. It is the biggest drama in the world. There's not even really drama in Dallas. And that is the biggest drama in the world with Dak Prescott. Because he got a no trade clause, because he got a no franchise clause, they are absolutely boned if they don't get a deal done, because Dak is going to walk and is going to get Texas with a $sign in the offseason next year. No one seems to care. GM's non-phased. Coach is nonplussed. Whatever. We'll get it done. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I mean, they are treating a $50 million APY investment like it's the iTunes terms and conditions. Yeah, click. Well, we'll read it next time. Not a big deal. We'll look at it. We'll look at it later. It's fine if we need to. Maybe. It's fine. Okay. I think that is comforting on the one hand for Packers fans who are, going, hey, I'd like to see the face of the franchise be compensated like that. And more to the point, I'd like to see him get a 5 or a 6 year deal. But I do think it raises important questions about why this isn't done by now. Because Brian Gutekunst, in a pretty rare move by any general manager, was like, yeah, we'd like to get it done by training camp. Well, it's training camp. Now they get the pads on in a couple days. That's the next deadline. And, the reporting is they budgeted for this deal just like they budgeted for the Kenny Clark deal. So they know about what this is going to cost them. So what's the holdup? My guess, and this is based on some conversations that I've had, my guess is there are two things here. One is that final top line number. What does that look like? Because that's going to be the big number that gets reported. That is the win for the agent. And then the second is, what are the mechanisms for the guaranteed money? This is the most boring part of this conversation. And maybe this is why there's no drama, because everyone has said all the right things. But what we're talking about is rolling guarantees, and what is in year 3, is it going to be a roster bonus? Is it going to be some other signing bonus? What is it going to look like? These are the things that they are haggling over at this point. And if you look at, say, the Jalen Hurts deal, they've got all these, they're not trap doors, but they're latches. Every couple of years, okay, here's another set of big dollars that are guaranteed to you that we can turn into a signing bonus, spread it out over the life of the contract, and you get in your pocket. That's the trade-off, is in a year, in 2 years, you get money that just you get. It's not quite base salary, but it is in the sense that because it's a signing bonus or a roster bonus, they can turn it into a signing bonus and prorate it over the life of the contract. So let's say next year they want to put a $30 million roster bonus. They can do that. And then they can say, nah, we're going to convert this. And it becomes a signing bonus. They do this all the time. They do it with Elton Jenkins. They do it with David Bakhtiari. This is part of their structure. They don't truly guarantee money beyond year 1, year 2. But they practically guarantee some of these years. It's like, if you're on the roster, this is your money for sure. It's not incentives. It's not those things. I'll finish with this. I have been steadfast and remain steadfast that Jordan Love is going to be the highest paid player in the league, the highest paid player in history when this is all over. Because if he wasn't going to be, he would be signed. If he was just going to take the Jared Goff deal, they would have offered it and it would be done. If he was just going to take the Trevor Lawrence deal, or a cent more, what was the Trent Williams? He got $1 more than David Bakhtiari. It would be done. It would be done. But it's not. And so I think that tells us where this number is going to come in. It is going to come in huge. Now, the only thing that I will add as a caveat is, it was suggested to me that maybe what is happening here is Tua and Miami, both represented by Athletes First, by the way, are going to come in a little bit lower than where we're thinking. And that the Packers may want to use that as some last minute leverage on their side. But Tua wants Jordan Love to go first so he can ask for more. And Love wants Tua to go first so they can ask for more. Unless Tua is not going to get as much as we think. Well, the agents presumably know that. So that complicates all this. We don't have that knowledge, but it's just something I was thinking about. So if we get a Tua deal today or tomorrow, does that speed up things? Does that complicate negotiations? Just something to think about as we move forward here. And speaking of moving forward, Matt LaFleur, in year 2 with this group, he sees a difference in how he can approach it. And we might be underestimating the impact that could have on this team. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the job. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Do the thing that 2.5 small businesses are already doing on LinkedIn and use them for hiring. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Think back to 2019. Matt LaFleur comes in, and you're expecting a heavy play action, Shanahan-influenced offense. That's not quite what we saw, right? And unfortunately, it was one of the reasons. I understand you go to the end of the 2019 season in that 49ers game and you go, well, the only reason they lost that game was because of the defense. That's not quite true. If they had any threat to score, the 49ers may have been forced to change the way that they were approaching their run game. They just were like, well, we're going to run because they're not only are they not scoring, but they're not stopping us. The Chiefs, I made this point ever since then. The Chiefs didn't stop the 49ers run game. They just got going offensively. It forced Kyle Shanahan, it Jedi mind tricks Kyle Shanahan into saying, well, what we have to do is match them. We got to throw a little bit more. And that meant Jimmy Garoppolo doing more than he's really capable of doing. So in 2019, the Packers had a good, not great offense. They were 7th in EPA per play, but 15th in success rate. 10th in dropback EPA. Okay. You remember what that 2020 team looked like? It was better. It was a lot better. Aaron Rodgers was the MVP. In fact, it was one of the best offenses we've seen of the last 10 years. They led the league in EPA per play by a mile. By a mile. 0.221 EPA per play. The next closest was the Titans at 1.89 EPA per play. 1.77 was the Chiefs at third. Like, that is a huge difference. They were 2nd in success rate, number 1 in EPA per dropback by a mile. By a mile. That offense took a jump in year 2 with Matt LaFleur. And at the time on this show and on Acme Packing Company where I was writing at the time, it would have been on the Leap, but we didn't start the Leap yet. We wrote about and talked about what happens to these offenses in year 2. It was 2016 in year 2 with Kyle Shanahan that Falcons team turned into a threshing machine. Matt Ryan becomes MVP. It was year 2 with the Rams, really. I mean, year 1 with Jared Goff, really, but it's Jared Goff's year 2. But then year 2, they just, no one had anything for them. This has been a trend with this scheme over the years. Now, this is a group that a lot of them have been in this scheme. Jordan Love has been in this scheme. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, but for 1 year. And Matt LaFleur, it was almost a throwaway comment. But he was asked about the difference. You know, here you stand here before training camp with expectations of being an NFC contender. Whereas last year, there were all of these questions about what this was going to look like with Jordan Love and all of these young pieces. Was that plan going to work? What was this going to look like? And now, extending the metaphor of what it's going to look like, Matt LaFleur says he has a clear vision of what this team is capable of. That is such an underappreciated idea that the coach with institutional knowledge now about the players is going to better craft a plan to put them in a position to succeed. And this was something that in 2020 and in 2021, Matt LaFleur talked about constantly. He was learning these players. His coaches were learning these players. What are they capable of? What are they not capable of, more importantly? Where do they fit best? And they constantly evolve this offense. And I would push back a little. They constantly changed the offense. I don't know that it was always an evolution in that it got better. 2020 was the pinnacle of the offense until 2023. It regressed in 2021 by efficiency, by structure, by design from the quarterback. But they changed it because they were constantly changing it to try and give the players the things that they were most comfortable with. And defenses changed the way that they approached the Packers offense. And so in year 2, now you know exactly how to deploy Jayden Reed. You go back and watch every snap of Dontavian Wicks in an NFL offense. And by the way, he apparently looked like a star yesterday at training camp. Christian Watson has now been on the team 2 years. Romeo Doubs, 2 years. It's a full season of Jordan Love. It's Zach Tom, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, this young ascending offensive line. What are they able to do together? Now, the defense is going to be a work in progress. It's mostly new position coaches, a new defensive coordinator. So they're still learning those guys. That's going to be a work in progress too. The offense doesn't have to be. And that is a scary proposition for the rest of the NFL because this was a top 5 passing offense last year. You add Josh Jacobs, you hope he can be healthy. You add Marshawn Lloyd, who is dealing with a hip injury right now. A.J. Dillon is back and looking svelte, even though he's still an absolute hammer. This experience of seeing this young team up close, and look at how they looked in the second half. They see the Lions again, they torch them. They see the Vikings again, they torch them. They see the Bears again, if not for a couple untimely drops. Like Jordan Love was outstanding in that game. Lit up a defense that was playing really, really well the second half of the year. And then we saw what they did against Dallas. We saw what they looked like for a half at least against the 49ers before Zach Tom got hurt. And so they understand the strengths and weaknesses of their team better. And if they're worth their salt, even a little, if it's a saltine, they should be better at putting these players in a position to succeed this year. And then you add in talent. Luke Musgrave back healthy. If you can keep Christian Watson healthy. I mentioned Lloyd. Then there's just the incremental improvements that you can not bank on, but you can build in. It's not a secret why I think this can be the best offense in the league. It's not blind homerism why I think this can be the best offense in the league. They were an elite offense last year under unprecedented circumstances. Unprecedented circumstances. It's not a guarantee that they're going to be better this year. But when I hear Matt LaFleur say, I have a clear vision of what this is. You think back to the 49ers game against one of the best defenses in the league. A week after dismantling, again, one of the best defenses in the league. They felt like they had a clear vision, to bring that word back, of how to attack the 49ers with their team. And that's Christian Watson still coming back from injury, not 100%. You still have the John Runyon Jr., Sean Ryan platoon going on at right guard because John Runyon Jr. is not 100%. And you still have all these rookies and first-time starters everywhere, and they felt confident in a playoff game. Like, I think in 2019, if you put them on truth serum in 2019 after they got boat raced by the 49ers, if you ask them, did you really think you could beat this team? I think in their heart of hearts, they knew that they just had no shot. Maybe they didn't know they had no shot, but they knew that 49ers team was much better than them. They were much better than them. That was not the case in 2020 or 2021. And in 2021, the Packers did believe they would beat the Bucs. The 2020 playoffs, a game that happened in 2021. And in 2021, they certainly believed they would beat the 49ers, but they were, I don't think, as confident in attacking that defense because that defense was really, really good. And the Packers offense, again, I think if you got a couple pints of, wild turkey into Matt LaFleur, he would tell you that was the best defense they faced all year, that they knew their offense had some limitations, which is why they went to this RPO heavy offense with Aaron Rodgers, all the stuff at the line of scrimmage to try and get them in the best place possible because they had some personnel limitations on that team. And some, structural limitations as well. They believe in this team in part because they have a clear view of what they're capable of being. And that is a vital piece to putting them in a position to succeed. And it's just as important to know what they can't do or what they're not so good at as it is to know what they are good at or what they can do. Speaking of those crucial ideas, we saw some players on the field for the first time yesterday. And two players, their positions, stood out to me. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I love them. I never want them to stop. But NBA playoffs, that was a million years ago, it seems like. Now we're on to Team USA. Hockey playoffs, was that 6 years ago that we had those? There's way fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing the way I want them to. I had the WNBA for a while, but now they're going to the Olympics. I do get Team USA games. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Plenty of stuff at the Olympics. Plenty of stuff with baseball, futures. I'm heavy in the futures market right now in the NFL. I'm liking what I'm seeing right now. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And Locked On has launched the first ever sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Two rookies in the starting nickel group for the Green Bay Packers yesterday. We don't want to read too much into these things because the starting defense in base did not have Edgerrin Cooper on it, but it seems impossible that he would not be the linebacker with Quay Walker you would want on the field in nickel, just from a traits standpoint. Javon Bullard on the field with Xavier McKinney. Now, to open mini camps and OTAs, it was Anthony Johnson Jr. And we saw this, you may remember back in 2022, Quay Walker, not right away. He was rotating in the spring. And then once training camp opened, it was like, what competition? This is over. This is his job. And I wonder if the same thing is going to happen here with Javon Bullard. We'll see on Edgerrin Cooper. I think it's possible they like Isaiah McDuffie enough next to Quay that they could just roll with that in base. But if this is your nickel group, you're going to live in nickel. So why would you have two different linebackers in base than in your nickel group? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And also, just why? Like, is Edgerrin Cooper that much worse fitting the run on early downs than he is defending the pass on second and third down when you're going to be in your nickel front? Like, that's the thing that kind of doesn't make sense. My guess is by mid-training camp, like by mid-August, I guess that would be toward the end of training camp. But like by family night, Edgerrin Cooper and Javon Bullard are your starting players. And not because they just got drafted, but because they're good enough to be starting players. Now, the question around Jordan Morgan is a different one and a more complicated one. With the first offensive line group, it was Andre Dillard out there. Now, I do wonder. Zach Tom got activated but was not doing stuff with the ones. So Dillard was playing right tackle. Sean Ryan was playing right guard. I do wonder if that is more about the position they really want Jordan Morgan to play is guard. So you need Dillard to be your swing tackle. Then he got roasted by Rashawn Gary a couple times in the red zone. And so it's just sort of like, this guy might just not be anything. He might just be cooked. Like he was someone I really liked in the pre-draft process. The athletic tools are there, but he just might not be an NFL offensive lineman. That just might be true. And I don't read too much into one practice, of course, but he was quite bad last year. And so sometimes it's just over. I do wonder though, if not being the presumptive backup right tackle is as much about where they would really, again, in their heart of hearts, on truth serum, want Jordan Morgan to play this year. And given how much Elgton Jenkins is playing center, like this is not just an experiment. I've been saying this for weeks on this show, in the Leap, on every radio show. Jordan Morgan's readiness to play is going to decide who plays center. Because if the Packers feel comfortable moving Elgton Jenkins because they have someone to play there, they are going to move Elgton Jenkins. Like there is not a center competition. Josh Myers and Elgton Jenkins are not competing to play center. If the Packers feel comfortable with Elgton Jenkins moving from left guard because there's someone else to put there that feel good about, he's moving. He's going to play center. And that is my prediction, that Jordan Morgan is your left guard and Elgton Jenkins is your center. I think that is the best group you can put together of this five that you're going to put together. The best five: Walker, Morgan, Jenkins, Ryan, Tom. A surprising number of double first names in that list. Unintentional. So that is something to keep an eye on. Is Jordan Morgan not getting the tackle reps that maybe you feel like he should be getting? The Packers said they thought he could play tackle. Yeah, and they've cross-trained him. They're cross-training him. But I wonder if the real reason is that they want him to play guard early and they would rather him get the guard reps because that's the position he's most likely going to have to play sooner than later. That would make a lot of sense to me, but we'll see. All right. The pads come out in a couple days. The first game is like around the corner. Around the corner. It's like a week away. So, and then a little more, I think. And so football's back. We're back. We're so back, baby. So follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Wherever you get podcasts, go subscribe to what we're doing here. Social medias, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Locked On Packers, so you can stay Locked On Packers.